Lots of fighting on tonight's episode of The Conners. It's Stuck in the Middle and Stuck in the Past. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my Conners review for the latest episode. We are on episode 12 now of season 5. It is called Stuck in the Middle and Stuck in the Past. And everyone in the opening credit sequence that we see their name, they were actually in this episode, including Jaden Ray, one of the only times we've seen her this entire season. So that was some exciting stuff. Before we launch into the specifics of this episode, though, I want to welcome you in to Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do the Conners here every week on Dan Reviews It. Well, every week there's a new episode, I should say. And we've even gone back in the past and done the Roseanne season, so you can check those out as well. And this was a Roseanne-heavy episode. They talked about her and their past a lot in this. We'll get into that. But the other thing I want to say is please consider subscribing down below there. Would love to have you aboard, and you can check out every week when I post the videos. All right, so Stuck in the Middle, Stuck in the Past. Let's talk about first Stuck in the Middle, because that is about Ben and Darlene really kind of jamming Becky up at the house. They are having fights, like I mentioned up top, a lot of fights in this episode. And in fact, the first few minutes, I really was like, I don't know if I can deal with this episode. Everyone's just yelling at each other, and then when we get into the specifics of the plot, it gets a lot better on both plot lines. But yeah, the first 4 or 5 minutes, everyone was just yelling at each other all the time. But anyway, so Darlene and Becky, or Darlene and Ben, I should say, having problems because Darlene, look, she's still out of work for a permanent job. She's been delivering food and stuff, but Ben, to make up for it, has been working longer hours at the hardware store, but also that means coming home and working in bed as well on his laptop. And Darlene is, kind of having a fit about that because he should be talking to her at that point in time, and she can't take all, the typing and the light as she's trying to sleep. So, okay. But the problem is Becky is trying to write this paper. We've learned, recently that she is going to be going for a psychology degree. I think it's a master's, right? I think we talked about that, in the last couple of episodes. But she has this paper that is due by midnight, and it's, 2/3 of her grade. Which seems a little silly, but, that does happen sometimes. There's a big term paper that's sort of all-encompassing from what you've learned so far. Sure, 2/3 of the grade. So she is having trouble getting her work done because they keep coming to her individually and sort of, putting their problems on her to figure out, and she keeps telling them, dude, I gotta get this done, whatever. She keeps giving them sort of one-word responses or one-line responses and saying bye, which I thought was funny. But yeah, it boils down to she ends up turning in the paper a few minutes late, and she was thinking, okay, well, they'll dock me at least a letter grade for that, but hopefully it was an A paper that can still be a B. But no, it turns out that the paper was not even accepted late, and so she has to take the course over again. And, it's Darlene and Ben's fault. So she sits down with them and talks to them about it. Personally, I think she should make them pay for the class, too. Not that they have the money, I guess, right now, but still, I went to college. Classes are not cheap. So if she has to repeat the class, I think they should probably foot the bill for that, to be completely honest, but whatever. Again, they're sort of struggling as is. But she worked everything out, about Ben's possible resentment about Darlene not working and whatever. So, I think that was good for the writers to do that, just to kind of prove that she does have the ability to do a counseling career or a psychology career. So that was great. All right, then the other part, Stuck in the Past. So that fight was between Dan and Jackie. Dan is telling a story in the living room to everybody. All the kids were there, Harris, Mark, and Mary. And Darlene was there as well. And Becky was there, I think, too. Anyway, Doesn't matter, but he's telling the story about riding this old mechanical bull, and they start kind of laughing at him. And Darlene says, "You know, you were a lot bigger back then. Are you sure you weren't drunk and remembering it wrong?" Becky was there, because then she's like, "Oh yeah, that's what Mom told me happened." He's like, "Well, that's, that she was just trying to make you laugh. Well, I have it on video. Let's take a look at the old home movies." He can't find the home movies. He believes that he gave them to Jackie to digitize, so they start a big fight about how she didn't have them, she was never given them, whatever. And Dan will not admit that perhaps he's wrong, and so they get into a talk about early onset dementia. They had a dementia episode a few weeks ago with Beverly, Roseanne, and Jackie's mom, and so not that Dan is a blood relation to Bev, but obviously he's getting to that age where you start really kind of questioning if you are losing your memory or whatever. So they have a big fight about it, and Becky has an idea to, hey, why don't we just get these stories recorded now, so the family history can continue. There's a funny joke there about Beverly Rose knowing that Darlene was always kind of this sad sack, and that Becky came out of the womb beautiful. So that was funny. But while they're recording everything, Dan and Jackie start sort of saying different things about, so, oh no, that's not when that happened, it was this and whatever. And so they, I wouldn't say start fighting again, but a little bit heated. And so they ask the kids to leave the room and have a conversation about, hey, listen, it could have been either one of us that is remembering wrong about these tapes. Jackie said, oh, I forgot a couple of these stories. Maybe you forgot the home movies. We don't know. So he's like, oh, but you know what? I do have Roseanne's diary in the one cabinet in the kitchen. We could just look through that and then see some of the stories. So she goes in with Mark to find the diary, and in there is all of the tapes, the reels of the home movies as well. So Jackie decides to take the high road and tells Dan that, oh, you know what, I did have him in my car all the time. Of course, he's not very kind about that, but in any event, they did get saved and everything. And there's a nice little tag scene with Dan and Mark, where Mark is reading the diary to Dan because he can't really bring himself to do it. And Mark's like, oh, I can just take out all the stuff that hurts you, whatever. And so he reads that they had meatloaf the one night, and then nothing else. He can read, everything else is about Dan, I guess. So that was funny. Listen, overall, even though I went into this episode a little bit apprehensive, because I just was like, oh man, this is a lot of fighting this early in the episode. Like, this is going to be 22 minutes of them just yelling at each other. But it really was not. It turns out to be actually one of my favorite episodes of the season so far. I really, really liked it. Now, I will admit, Darlene has been coming off lately as just this real, harpy. She's always, on Ben's case. She's on Becky's case about the new house and cleanliness and everything. I will say, when the episode first started and she was, arguing with Ben, I was just like, oh man, here we go again. They need to tamp this down if they want me to, keep enjoying Darlene on the show. But then they sort of did that as the episode went on. So I liked that. I liked the resolution, actually, to both of these things. I really liked that Jackie was, sort of a big enough person to pretend that she was the one who was wrong, sort of save Dan's ego a little bit. And I like that, I hate that Becky lost her class, because of them, but I like that she got to sort of sit down and, work everything out and kind of monitor, the situation and people's vibes and everything. Now, granted, she knows these people, so, okay, maybe, in the real world it might be slightly different, but she even says, like, this is a textbook case. Literally, it's on page 146, or whatever of the book. So, I like that they're giving Becky more of a character. I feel like since we've had the reboot, she had the alcoholism sort of run for 2 or 3 seasons. A lot of her character was I'm in recovery, and which was great at the time. I think we had that show Mom, which everybody was in recovery, and I really enjoyed that show. It's a part of life, and that's great to have characters with, different addictions and going through some things. But for a little while after that, it seemed like that was her character. Like, I'm the recovering alcoholic. That's my character. So I really liked that they had her go back to school, and I like that she's, being successful in that area. She was always studious. She was, always very book smart. Look, one of the things I think that also kind of gave me the parallel in the original show was I was kind of Darlene. I was a bit depressed and I had my issues, but and I didn't do great in school. I was a smart person like Darlene, but maybe school wasn't necessarily my thing. Whereas my older brother, in this case Becky, but my older brother's only about a year and a half older than me, and he always got, A's, straight A's sometimes, the occasional B, but like, I'd be getting B's and C's and the occasional D, and then A's in English. I would always, like Darlene, I imagine, I always got A's in English. So, so that's another sort of parallel that I always drew to this family, and so it's great to see Becky really, getting back into the academia and, bettering herself in that way. So I love that. And I really like the back and forth with Dan and Jackie. The fighting, maybe not so much. I don't know. Whenever he would sort of make little, sort of cutting comments in the original Roseanne, it was more, funny. But anymore, they seem to kind of yell at each other a lot. And he's like, oh, you've always been doing this, for 40 years, you just don't think, and this and that. They turned that into a funny joke about taking Darlene to The Exorcist when she was 10, and that's why she's the way she is. But the sort of anger that he was feeling was real, and I was like, oh man, like Jackie doesn't necessarily deserve this. I didn't want it to turn into something worse, but I think it worked out great. They resolved everything. Really, this has turned out to be one of my favorite episodes of the season, and it's funny as hell too. It's one of the funniest that they've had in quite a while. Both storylines, I got a lot of good laughs from. So, and it was nice to see everybody. I know Mary didn't have much to do; she only gave a couple of lines or whatever, but still, she was in the episode, something we have not seen for a couple of months. And Mark as well. We haven't seen him in the last few episodes, at least. He, again, wasn't, a major plot point here, but had a couple of lines as well. So, nice to see everybody. Louise is on tour, so she wasn't in it. And Neville, he's only in a handful of episodes, so we didn't see him. But yeah, this is maybe only the second episode of the season where everyone that's named in the credits was in the episode. They even name-checked DJ in this one as they were sort of going down memory lane a little bit. So that was fun. I don't know if they've mentioned him the entire season, except maybe in that first episode after Michael Fishman had left the show. So, all right, we'll wrap it there. I guess there's not really much more to say other than I really enjoyed this episode. Especially, based on a sort of rocky start, I thought. The MVP for me in this episode is Becky, hands down. I thought she had some of the best jokes, and I love her character sort of, playing that middleman, and I'm so irritated for her that she, I know she's a fake character, but that she has to repeat that class now, because that's not fun and it ain't cheap. So God bless her for not just, ripping Darlene and Ben's heads off, but look, like my older brother, I think Becky's always been kind of, pretty level-headed about things. So anyway, I will leave Stuck in the Middle and Stuck in the Past with an A-. All right, I'm not sure if there is a new episode next week or not. We're sort of getting into awards season too, so I know the Grammys are coming up, the Oscars are the Oscars are on Sundays, so that won't affect it. But sometimes they have just random, like the CMAs are on Wednesdays usually. So we'll see what happens. I know next week they're also premiering a new show. I think it's next week because Home Economics had its season finale this week. So. Whatever the case is, there's some new show coming on. I think it's with Jane the Virgin. What's her name? Gina Rodriguez. Anyway, if there is a new episode next week, I will be here with you. If not, well, I'll see you the next one that comes around. But check out the other stuff on my channel as well in the meantime. And I just put up a Night Court review for the reboot that just aired its first 2 episodes on Tuesday. So, if you're in the Roseanne world, maybe you were a fan of Night Court as well. So check that review out as well. All right, see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Thanks for watching. Bye.